To go live.
So I learned from a friend who does a lot of YouTube that there is a delay when you say go live on YouTube. You actually have to wait like 3 to 5 seconds before it's actually live. Just an
Yes.
FYI.
Yeah.
No. Yep. I get that.
Welcome, Colin. Are you feeling better?
Hello. Yes, feeling much better today. Thank you.
Oh, good. Your color is better.
Yeah, I felt like garbage the other day.
Ah, the young and healthy. Only one day.
It
Congratulations.
was a few days.
Mhm.
We're still waiting for Brent. Good to see you, sort of, Becky. She was there, now she's gone.
There he is. Hey, Brent.
Hi.
Oh, there he is. We can get started now. Hi, Shane.
Hey, Shane.
Hello.
Hello, Brent.
And Shannon.
Oh, there's Shannon.
Hi, Shannon.
Okay. Are we good, Blair?
I think so.
All right. Okay, you guys, just a couple announcements before we kick it off. Mind Model Method Coach training is coming up February 12th through 15th for session 1, and then the 26th through March 1st. And then IBC is March 12th through 14th and then 19th through 21st. So if you need more information on that, or if you haven't contacted Blair, please make sure you do connect with him so you can get more details on how to get signed up for those as well. Also, Blair, you said next 5-day business challenge is starting on March 3rd. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so more details will be coming on that, so stay tuned as well, which is pretty cool. Also, Blair has a wonderful treat for you guys as an enhancement to the BDE. He's got his insider notes. You get all historical notes from episode 318, and we're on 330, and ongoing for an enhancement to your study, learning mind models and how they can apply to your unique situation. So definitely recommend you get your hands on that. It's $25 a month or $300 a year, which is an absolute gift for the level of depth and utility that that provides. So if you're getting benefit from being on the BDE and you want to have an enhancement, I definitely recommend that you get your hands on that. And if somebody already dropped that in the chat, nope, I will go ahead and do that. I'll pop it in the chat here. And for those of you who may be joining us on YouTube, again, you can go to, is that on the BDE.com, Blair? Where can they get access to that? Remind me.
I'll put that on. What did you want? Access to the BDE?
So people who are on YouTube, if they want to get their hands on your insider notes, what's the best place for them to go to get that?
I believe BlairDunkley.com has a link there
Okay.
as well. So, and I'm going to be putting one in here. So maybe somebody else could post that.
Yeah.
Where
Oh,
that-
and thank you,
Can't
Jane.
read.
Thanks, Pointy.
Yeah, Jane's got it up at the screen too. So
Yes, so blairdunkley.com dash insider notes. So for those of you who are joining us virtually on YouTube, if you want to get your hands on the notes, please go to the blairdunkley.com and go to the notes and you can grab them there. And then for those of you who are in with us tonight, I've posted that in the chat section. So definitely go ahead and get your hands on that. With that, you guys, welcome to the 330th. You heard that right. Episode of the Blair Dunkley Experience, where we discuss mind models. We discuss mind models, and they are a simple framework, excuse me, that helps us put names and labels to how we think And when we understand how we think, then we can be more effective and create identifiable, duplicatable, and repeatable processes and behaviors to break out of stuck states. Mind models have been extensively tested and proven to be 80% effective when versus mindset, which is only 1% effective, especially when you're repeating them. And your host for this evening is Blair Dunkley. Wave, Blair. Okay. He is the creator of Mind Models. We are Tim and Becky Graff. We're co-hosts along with Patty McClurg and Colin Jewett as well, and who is a coach in training. And we are excited to be with you. The BDE is Blair's free gift to you and an opportunity to learn in a real world, real life, experiential environment to become more effective. As far as how mind models have helped Tim and I, they've actually helped us in every area of our life, resolving an 8-year issue in our marriage in several moments, but in a matter of hours. And they actually also helped us navigate the traumatic loss of our daughters in 2020. As we navigated the PTSD and trauma from that event, we've been able to have an increase in the speed of our recovery when faced with those kinds of things. And we've been able to do that all without going to traditional counseling. And we're stoked to be with you tonight and welcome you to the BDE. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Darren.
All right. Wanted to check in with everybody. Last week, we weren't on. We unfortunately missed it, but I understand there was an excellent discussion around barriers. Yes, barriers. I know we're talking about barriers, blocks, and beliefs, but I think last night, my understanding was last week's conversation was around barriers. And so I just wanted to check in with everybody and see if anyone had any leftovers or anything that they noticed this week. Jane.
So I missed last week also. Actually, I watched it live on YouTube. So
Okay.
there are people that do that. But yesterday, I had a very interesting experience. I actually used my models in live in real time. In that I was invited on a call between my roofing contractor and my insurance company. And the first portion, I was just listening in, and I started to notice that my roofing contractor was being very specific about what they needed from the insurance company, and the insurance company was staying very general. So boom, general versus specific. And I was able to ask questions to clarify that that was a difference, and that what that difference was and what we would need to do to close that gap, that barrier that was in between the two. And the conversation went on, and I did some other things with it to make sure that the whole liability of timing and all that other stuff was covered within my policy, but within, and who at this point in time was actually the obstacle in getting the work done to happen in that time frame. And when I got off the call and then called my roofing contractor, the first thing he said is, "Jane, you were fabulous. My boss wants to know if you want a job." External verification that the mind models had worked in real time. And for me, that was huge, that I had the words. And of course, I'm going to call it inspiration too, because, and that, not just they just work, but they work, when you least expect it. So thank you, Blair. It was amazing. And hopefully we'll be able to go forward, because we now have documentation on both parties so that my work can go forth. So yeah,
Absolutely.
and so I jazzed on that and went from having some confidence. Blair keeps telling me I got this. Patty keeps telling me I got this, to, whew, look at that, I got this external verification. So I celebrated for a good hour.
Well done, Jane. Well done. Hey, Lise, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, it's great to be here.
Well, it's great to see you, Lise. Just a quick update. We're just checking in to see if anybody, I'm not sure if you were on last week. We started talking about barriers, but we're just wondering if anybody had some leftovers, anything that happened to them this week that with anything they observed after the conversation last week. So did anyone else have something this week that they would love to share?
I have
Well,
lots of wins this week, by the way, but and especially with a client, a breakthrough, but I don't want to hog the show here. There's lots of stuff to be done. And my client has a major breakthrough. So that's huge.
Well, if nobody else has any leftovers or any thoughts after last week's conversation, think we wanted to, and I will hand the ball to you, Blair, to do a review of the imposed barriers. If you would speak to that.
Actually, I can actually build on this because he was using imposed barriers.
Oh, there you go.
So, there's a bunch of imposed barriers. Time is one of them. So imposing with time is a barrier. Imposing with, well, just about anything that's externally verifiable can be a barrier. So things that are external to you, you can adapt and adopt it as though it's something that's there, or it can be like a trigger, something from the past projected into the future, but you don't think about it that way because you're feeling it now. So it seems very present, but it's all past future loops. And that whole thing can be very much of an imposed barrier. And you can have barriers that are imposed on you by others and ones that you impose on yourself. So those are some rather interesting models that are there. So we also have, I have a question actually. Have you guys noticed that there are barriers in your life that you have had this last week? Have you noticed any barriers that are in your life? And if you had, would you mind sharing one?
No physical barriers.
No, maybe not, but mental barriers. Colin, you're
Um,
forward. Sorry, go ahead. Who was
no,
that?
go ahead, Colin.
yeah, for me, one was just figuring out financing coach training coming up. That was a barrier that I was smacking my head into quite a bit, but thankfully, once I saw it as a barrier instead of a block or belief, I found ways around it.
Yeah, pretty fast too.
Didn't feel fast to me, but it was, I guess, looking backwards, it didn't take too long.
No, it didn't. Like, how long were you holding on to the stuckness of it? And then once you found it as a barrier, well, either a block or a barrier, what happens?
I was probably in the belief zone for a couple days, then I was in the block zone for a couple days, then I was in the barrier zone for a couple days. So it wasn't too long.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is that when we can name and label where we are, everything can speed up because it allows us to break through. Lori and I had definitional, well, barriers that were holding us back. She was referring to things as, well, we were trying to work through some stuff, and she had the word break. She used the word like take a break. And I got sort of semi-triggered by that. And my process was break up. When we got it resolved, well, and started debriefing it, it wasn't about break up. It was, she wanted that take a break time-wise and just give it time. And me, I didn't know exactly what that meant. in her mind. So when she said take a break, I inferred quite ineffectively that it was potentially break up. And it wasn't at all. So, being able to get on the same page with naming and labeling is critical because those were imposed barriers by mislabeling, missing the meanings, having the same idea labeled two different ways, but those meanings were not identical. So by changing words around and talking about what did she mean, and thank God I've got some skills in this, and I was able to ask her, what do you mean by this? Like, what's going on? I didn't do it in a very gracious manner. I concede that wholeheartedly. And Lori's starting to nod. Yeah, okay, yeah, you didn't. Which is true, I didn't. But I did something moving forward, and I clarified it enough without being too dramatic about it. A little dramatic, but not too dramatic. Okay.
And there's the external verification right there for the fact that it was just a little dramatic and not too dramatic.
And Lori's laughing like crazy. Yes, I get it. So she concurs there was drama that I created, and I acknowledge that. However, that also gave us the impetus to shift and see where the meanings were, because I know we behave to the meanings of words. And it's our meanings of the words, and we have to get alignment between the meanings of words. And it really didn't take that long once we got the meaning sorted out, and because we were basically on the same page. I just didn't know at the time. That's all. Okay. Tim, sorry, or Becky, whomever.
I was gonna say, I love that you shared that interplay between you guys, because what would have happened had you not got curious enough to get on the same page? Right? How often do misunderstandings or misalignment like that turn from a barrier or problem into something that is a hardcore certainty of an outcome?
Yeah.
Does anybody experience that? That would like to share? Shane, have you ever experienced something like that where there was a misalignment about something, a barrier that turned into a more concrete or seemingly unfigure-outable situation? Either personally or like real world.
Oh, not necessarily. I mean, there's been barriers between Christy and I when we're not on the same page with communication, but as far as not making it past it in that moment, maybe, but it's not a long-term effect. So it always goes back to sitting down and making sure at that time before Blair, it was just talking, and now it's way more in depth, and we don't let it fester for 7 to 10 days. It might only be 2 or 3 days.
Yep.
So I
But
know
as far as long term, no, I don't have that experience, I guess.
that's great. I was thinking for myself, I remember Blair, you worked on this with me. This is an example of a barrier that I'd actually started putting some cement around and turning into a bit more of a block in my life. I was making it really awesome and, all reinforcing that barrier really, 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 really well, which was the belief and the barrier to my ability to communicate with other people. I believed that I could not and was horrible at public speaking. And so that meant anything at any time when there were other humanoids around other than like a few people. And Blair gently, kindly, and very effectively coached me through that and helped me identify that my perception of this uncomfortableness that I was experiencing when I would speak in front of people was not really it wasn't a block. It was a barrier. It was a problem. It was something I needed to figure out and work through. But I had started turning that into a block where anytime there was an opportunity to communicate publicly, I would freeze, I would have issues with that. And so I think it's an interesting question to pose to the group is, are there any barriers that, like me, whether it be relationship or, you know, in your business or in life, that you are starting or may be perceiving as a block because it's become a barrier for quite a while, or it's been a problem? And I know, Patty, I would love for you in a minute to share what you shared with us, if you're open to it, on our call as we were prepping for this, as far as your perception of some things that you've been going through, and the flow of that, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay. We were discussing in preparing the material for tonight, we were discussing the issue of imposed barriers. And I had a day of so many unexpected things. I had tech issues with a client, and I had that caused me to need to work around things differently. My mom was ill, and I manage some of her health. I manage a lot of her health at a distance because she's 3 hours away. And I'm trying to think, family dropped in, and so there were, which created a misalignment with my husband in terms of dinner plans. And, you know, just, there was just like one thing after another. And I thought, you know, I'm getting really tired. I'm getting fatigued by all of these barriers. Just, it's like holding ping pong balls underwater. I just felt like I couldn't deal with that. And then I started thinking about, well, I've dealt with a lot already. You know, I have a lot of external verification in my life of the things that, welcome, Lori, of the things that I have done. I know how to be effective. I know how to take one thing at a time. I know how to find workarounds. And I did find workarounds for absolutely every one of the things that occurred that day. They were relentless, but I found those. So the idea of getting resourceful, and then on the call, Tim made the point that when you're getting resourceful, you're not, the barriers aren't there. Tim, could you share how that being present in that moment and getting resourceful really causes those barriers to just drop?
Yeah, one of the biggest issues when we're feeling that we have all these barriers and it's overwhelmed, and honestly, if we're feeling overwhelmed, it's usually because we haven't broke it down, we haven't named and labeled it,
Mm-hmm.
and we haven't taken a moment to kind of step back and see the bigger picture. We're up against that wall, so to speak, and we're navel gazing, and we're not really looking at breaking things down into their individual parts and pieces. And a lot of times the problems that we perceive, these barriers, are really just between our ears. It's the 6 inches between our ears. And we all we see is these problems, and we don't actually take a moment to go, okay, what is real? What is really going on here?
Mm-hmm.
What can I do? And start asking ourselves those questions and getting resourceful. Because once we start just simply start asking ourselves questions of what is real, what is actually going on, how can I break this down? We find that we're not actually blocked if we're getting resourceful and we start asking ourselves questions. The other thing that is a great thing to do is start noticing what is actually, because in every situation and everything that is a perceived problem or a barrier, there is something that is working in that situation. There's always lots of things that aren't working, but there always is something that is working, those silver linings, so to speak. And if we start paying attention to what is working about this situation, yeah, and we start doing the evaluation process. We start asking, you know, what is working, what's not working, and we get, that's part of the 3 E's, and or sorry, not the 3 E's, but oh my gosh, my mind just went blank.
Evaluation.
Evaluation. Thank you. The 3 levels deep of evaluation. We actually find that we get resourceful and we start paying attention to what is actually working and noticing those wins in those situations. And suddenly, not everything is just a problem or a barrier. We actually can see a way around whatever the perceived problem was.
So one of the things that I'd like to pop in here is we've been using the words barrier and we've also used the word block. So I'd love to share a definition of what a block is, because barriers are things that we perceive as problems. Okay, we can, think about how we want to work through them, but a block is a state or condition of being obstructed, like a blockage, an obstruction or stoppage in mental processes or speech, especially when related to stress, emotional conflict, etc. So love to take a minute to discuss the specific difference between a barrier and a block. So Tim's talked about, resourcefulness. When you're in a resourceful state, likely you're working with a barrier or problem that you're attempting to work through, like Patty so beautifully illustrated. She had all these things stacking, and she could have thrown her hands up in the air and been like, it's just not going to work. Just not going to work.
Yeah.
At that point, that would be a danger point in taking a barrier and having it turn into a block, something that she might, start perceiving as unfigureoutable. That's my word for tonight. You guys have said it twice now. That's unfigureoutable. That is my word for tonight. Okay. So with a barrier, you might be able to see around. You might be able to see around it, see something else. It's like there's this construct, but there's got to be a way to work through it. The difference between a block is you can't necessarily see the other side of a block. Tim and I've experienced this a lot when we're out hiking. This is the best metaphor that I know is when we're hiking in a canyon and we're going down a place and all of a sudden we're faced with this wall and you're literally like, you're going forward and there's a 1,000-foot cliff in front of you and you got walls on the side. You don't have another option unless you've got climbing gear and you're like spider monkey to do anything other than step back, assess, or turn around. So when we're talking about blocks, it's something very similar. You don't have distance or scope on the thing you're dealing with. And you may not even be aware, you don't know what you don't know. And you may need to actually step back and get support from someone else if you can't take and get distance and scope on it yourself as well. A couple things about blocks too is sometimes, like for me, when I was just shared with you about the whole public speaking thing, I actually use that as an excuse to get myself off the hook. I'm just not good at this. I can't do it, so I'm not going to do it, right? That was my out. That was my out to stay comfortable and to stay in my own cozy place and give all my reasons, excuses, and rationalizations for why I couldn't do this thing and I couldn't progress and I couldn't become the entrepreneur and all the things that I wanted to become. So that's another facet of what a block can do. Sometimes it gives us our out. It gives us our excuse. And so when faced with a block, not a barrier, that's an opportunity where you might need to get perspective from someone else if you can't get distance on it yourself. And most people typically won't pivot like they do when they see a barrier because they don't perceive it as something that they can actually navigate or negotiate. So
I'd like to jump in here and go back to my client for a second because he was blocked, heavily blocked. He would throw up his, I can't do this. The lawyer won't allow this, this won't allow that. All of these things that are going on in his life would not enable him to go ahead and move forward. So he's got blocks. We were going through, I know this mind model isn't in our notes exactly, but it was Anandpu. And the famous Anandpu, which is awareness, notice, process, understand. And he was starting to say, well, I am aware that I'm stuck. So I can see myself as being stuck, and I'm knowing that I'm stuck, and I also know I need to get unstuck, but I don't know how. And I said, whoa, great, great, great. Hold it. Partial touchdown, really good. Pause, 2 seconds, because we'll go back and tell me the whole story from the start. And we did that. And he said, well, I'm aware. And he didn't know that he'd never learned an ANBU, but he was using the words, I'm aware that I'm stuck. And I said, hold it. When you say I'm aware, you are using awareness right here. And what is your awareness of? Well, the thing with the lawyer that's causing me to perceive myself as being stuck. Great. So that is now what? That is now a fact or a perception? No, it's perception. I see that as that because the lawyer actually isn't a lawyer, it was a mediator, and they don't have control over this. They can make suggestions, but there's no control, yet I'm giving them control and power. Oh, you just noticed if you wind up playing this back, you are aware of what you just noticed and you changed the meaning, like Lori and I did with break to just need some time to think. And all of a sudden, we're not breaking up. She's just needing time to think it through. And in this case, the awareness went from that to, oh, over here, a lawyer is no longer a lawyer, it's a mediator, and there's no real threat from the mediator. And he is now aware, which is the second level of awareness, that it is not as dramatic as he just first stated it as being. So he has awareness, notice, and he's aware of his awareness by noticing that the conditions are in fact different. And that's huge. But that's where he was stuck because he did not know how to move beyond this. So that was that next piece right there, which is awareness, notice, process. Well, what was his process? And he's got a few mind models under his belt. And he goes, well, is this effective or ineffective? The 3 E's, it's a little mini stack. And I go, right. Build a stack right here. And see if this block actually is, just something that's in your mind that you hold as realistic, or is it actually real? And he goes, well, it's not actually real. I was holding it as though it was real, but it's not actually real. So what might I be able to do if it's not actually real? I can evaluate it. So effective, and then externally verifiable, and then evaluation. And the 3 E's, effective versus ineffective, external versus internal, and evaluation versus judgment. All of a sudden, he flipped himself out of being effective and being internal and holding himself in judgment. But he was able to see the difference and said, wow, this is really good. Like I feel a shift. Touchdown, that's a process. That's the beginning of a process. Okay, so what's the next step in this process? And he goes, well, I'd love an answer. And then he says, yeah, but Blair, every time I talk about answers, you get upset with me and you want to kick my ass around the block because you want me to go after getting resourceful, not having right answers. Like, absolutely true. So what can you do to get resourceful? I can ask some questions. What might I do differently? And use your 3 magic words and just some really good questions and figure out what I might do differently. And all of a sudden, he got 2 different answers falling out of his brain almost at the same time. He couldn't talk fast enough to get them out at the same time. So it was boom, 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 well, boom, boom, and then pause. And then the third one popped out. And I go, don't go after more. You've got 3, and you can test these ones out. And now, how are you feeling? Well, capable. Like all the fear that I was having, all the crap it's all gone. But you haven't done anything. Yeah, but I've changed how I perceive it. That's big because 97% of everything we worry about never happens. Okay? So it's almost 100% of everything that holds us back is in this 6 inches between our ears. You start using the mind models to shift how we perceive it, and our world shifts. Technically, the world didn't shift, but our perception did. And all of a sudden, we go from a stuck state to a resourceful state. And he said, I'm overwhelmed and I'm stuck. And I then asked, are you frustrated? Very, was his immediate answer. He got it out faster than I got the words out of my mouth. Very frustrated. Like over the top, scale of 1 to 10, it's an 11 for frustration. Oh, but that frustration, is it still there now? No, that's gone. How come? Because I know about, well, the Ananpu and the 3 E's, and that I need to build a process. And I go, and you use the 3 magic words, and you shifted it, and what are you getting? Well, I'm starting to understand that this is me being in charge of me becoming resourceful. And I said, remember these 3 words. This is what all the mind models are based on: identifiable, repeatable, and duplicatable. That gives you control over your life. And that's what the mind models do. And he went from a very strong, hard block, into this whole thing, into a barrier, and then it just all collapsed. And then he didn't even have a barrier because he said, Blair, if I just said to myself, I'm aware of where I'm at and I'm noticing my awareness, can I ask myself some different set of questions? And before I answered that, he said, I know I can. So it's the questions I ask myself right at that moment that get me resourceful, is it not? And I said, yeah, that's a start. But remember, you got to build a process, right? But the 3 E's will help me do that. And the questions that I ask help me do that. And then I get that I can apply this, not just to my personal life, but to business too. 2 thumbs up. You got it. And everything changed for him. Huge breakthrough. And that's where he wants to get to, is get back into success in every area of his life and own it. Own it. Okay, that's my rant. Sorry, my story for tonight. That's it. Comments, questions?
Just want to take a minute and kind of check in with a few people and see. Leslie, I'm just curious what you're taking away from the conversation tonight.
It's not a rant.
Thank you.
It's once again reinforcing the things that we've been talking about. And that reinforcement helps change it from a concept to a habit.
Yes.
So it's, I'm just soaking it in here.
Cool. You know what? That was
I'm
one
feeling
of the
good. I'm feeling really good about it all.
That was one of the spin-off conversations that we had during our session today, and going, the brain loves keeping us stuck. How come? Because we have created a habit. And habits are created to keep our calorie count down in our brain, to not use too much energy. Okay? Even our fear response is one of the first things that we have. So we use our lizard brain or our crocodile brain or whatever brain you want to call it. And it's the brain that actually it's fight or flight. And we got to go through that in order to get through a midbrain area that is now a social response into a cognitive or prefrontal response. And that shifting, that ability for us to shift takes energy. But if we have the mind models, it does not take as much energy. And that's what we start practicing. And then all of a sudden, we see the success and we want to repeat the success because it's working for us. We put out a little bit more energy and turn that into the habit, and that becomes the habit of success.
And I dare say that's how come they are so effective, the mind models, and they're 80% effective, is because they are simple processes where we can take our since our minds like to go to that easiest, that path of least resistance, that easy way. This is a way of redirecting, of causing that state change into an effective process, easy enough that we can create new habits and new patterns and processes to become more effective versus just taking that easy way. And our minds love to look for certainty as human beings, but this brings in the clarity piece of it, not just certainty. And I mean, at least from what I've experienced, that is what makes the mind model so effective.
So true. I love that you put down, Brent, the I am process. Identify, apply, and master.
So I'm curious. Thank
Yeah.
you for you were gonna ask.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
that was something I got reminded from Leslie when he was talking about building the habits, and I was like, well, your piece, being able to identify that he was stuck, and then he's aware of that, so identifying that, but then being able to apply that, you help him be able to apply what the skills to find it and to move forward, and then just being able to repeat that, duplicate that, and build that habit to then when you see those blocks or those barriers, you're able to move past them effectively and quickly. So when you get to that process of building that habit, it becomes very simple and easier. Like Patty was speaking on earlier, they almost as if they're not there anymore. You see them and you can quickly move past them. So yeah.
Brent, I agree that the changes happen quickly, and they do. And I've been realizing them over the last week with some things that have been going on, and the improvement is noticeable. I notice it, and it's great. Simple things that are just getting the right perspective in place, and then stopping, looking at it, evaluating, not judging, but taking and looking at what's in front of you, seriously looking at what's been happening. And I've been able to change a few things this past week, and they are proving beneficial.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love that. Love you shared that, Leslie. That's actually it's exactly what we were talking to just a little bit ago with, just noticing those little wins and noticing those subtle shifts And if we break things down, we can pivot faster. We can, move into a more effective state. And then we do find that we're not, that barrier is something that we can easily get around. And also we can really notice whether it is actually a barrier or a block in our lives. And we start to pay attention to these things because a lot of times they get, we think they're a block and we see them as a block, but we don't actually notice that they're just barriers. And to Patty's story earlier, that was one of the things that was so effective when we were talking about it, is just how she took it, how it could have very easily, all the overwhelm and all the things that she was dealing with could have very easily been a block. And that, the mind wanting to go to that path of least resistance. But she actually got, taking it a piece at a time and breaking it down actually brings it down to the realization that they're just blocks, and she's able to work with barriers, or sorry, not blocks, but barriers. And she's able to work through those barriers and take them one at a time and make it through her day effectively.
So, curious, guys, what do you think the result of an internal block is? Because again, we're talking about, what blocks are and kind of the definition of it, but what might be the result of an internal block?
Feeling of helplessness.
Feeling of helplessness. Okay. What else?
Well, feeling of overwhelm.
Overwhelm. Leslie?
Frustration.
Frustration.
Lori,
yeah, I was just going to say emotion. Unmanaged emotions would come up.
Okay. Shane, what about you? What do you think?
I'm still operating in fear. Future events appearing real. Brent mentioned the I am. Like, I can identify and I can apply. Again, related to trading, I'm sorry, Patty, I am a trader. That
You forgot my name is Shane.
Yeah, my name is Shane. I am a trader.
I am a trader. Thank you.
Yeah, like I run a Sunday night accountability call, and my goal for that was my first morning session of trading was to let those trades go without me, because I'm urgent, I'm chargy, I want to be in a trade. So I told myself, you need to physically make a difference, make a change, and let those trades go without you. Come back to a later session and trade. It was very hard, very difficult. I got up several times, got more coffee, and watched the trades go away. The guys I was trading with, and they're like, "Man, this is hard on you." And I'm like, "It is. I want to be trading." Came back later, got 21 pips. It's great. I was happy. Shut it down. No more. Wasn't worried about it. Today, I hit a stop loss. Not, not. I wasn't feared up, or I wasn't worked up about that stop loss. It happened. I know they happen. My stuck is that I identified it. The pattern was still there. I applied it. I got into another trade. But in that moment, I hit fear because I'm okay. I'm up a few pips. I'm up a few pips. You better take your money before this trade's another loser. Took my pips. The trade did it. It went right to my take profit that I had set when I got in the trade. So I set my stop loss. When I entered the trade, I knew right where my stop loss should be. I knew right where my take profit should be. And as soon as I panicked, and I called it chicken shit, got chicken shitted out, took my few pips. About 5 minutes later, had I not operated in that fear, so that like I said, I identified, I applied because I got back in the trade. I just can't master that fear of, oh shit, this is going to lose again. Take your money. So,
Okay, can I address some of this? This is part of this thing here is we jump in and we do stuff because of our old selves dominating our new behavior. Okay, does that make sense, Shane?
for sure. And I still say this is a barrier because I can see the other side because I've seen the trade work.
Yeah,
So I can see that it's
absolutely.
just a barrier.
Now, the internal naming and labeling of this is really important. One of the things that I did a few weeks ago was to get you to test, to, to take it as a test, to see what happens,
Mhm.
and run the test, win or lose, run the test to evaluate your model against the real world results. And you didn't do this time. Okay? You got to hold on to this as a test.
So
Because
in that
the one
moment,
trade, is the one trade going to wreck you? Like,
no,
no.
100%. And then so I got into another trade later on when the setup still applied. I got back. I did the same exact thing, except for this time I got back to 100% break even. But again, you're break even. Take the money before it goes the wrong way. Goes right back to where I said it was going to go. I love it. I love trading. It's just frustrating that I can't get this figured out. I can read a
Okay,
damn chart. I
again,
can't read my mind.
no, but that comes down to testing.
Test, test, test.
And you know from the model that you're using for trading, one trade is not going to wipe out everything at all, ever, because you never built the farm.
Mm-mm.
You take a small percentage, you deal with that, you take your pips, and that's it. But it's always got to be a test. Okay?
Yes, sir.
If it's not testing, you're gambling. You're trying to
So
get
how? So mentally I tell myself stop doing that. I stop doing that, but it's an ineffective behavior that I've ingrained that I keep doing it. So is what's I physically have to get up if I get in a trade and have my parameters set, do I just need to physically get up and walk away? That I'm not sitting here watching this so my emotions don't run?
absolutely, I would.
Get up
Because
and
you've
walk away.
got
Make a
a
physical
stop
shift.
loss and a take profit, correct?
Oh, 100%. Don't
So
trade without.
walk away. You don't have to look at it. You've said everything. And run that as a test and see how many times by you just closing the computer, walking away, and seeing what happens, how many times out of 100 does that work?
Well, that's going to take a long time because I don't take 100 trades a week. I take like 10 trades a week.
Great. But even at 10 trades a week, if
Right.
you take 10 trades a week, you can extrapolate. You can go, what's the percentage win rate?
Right. And I know that. I know I don't, one trade doesn't matter. A block of 10, a block of 20. Are you profitable? Yes, I'm profitable, but not a but because I don't like the word but. That's a disguised why. I just feel like Shannon said, cornered and unresourceful. I just feel like the first words I think I ever said to you when you first profiled me was, "I'm smarter than my trade account looks."
Yeah, I recall
I
it.
still feel that way. But Lori has a question.
Yeah, I have a comment. What I picked up on what you said is you were talking about fear and how that comes into play. But then I also heard you say, I love trading. And I said, that's the flip side of fear. You actually have to put both of those aside and get to what Blair's saying is the tactics of the mind models. So, I don't know if you can hear me.
You had a call. Sorry.
But that's what I picked up on. Like it's the love that's
Absolutely correct,
grabbing them as
Lori.
well.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah. You got to get out of the it's not as bad gambling, but it is sort of the gambling mindset. And I would like to turn it into the testing behavior because it's a test. It's evaluation. And you've got your upper and lower your buy and your sell, stop loss and take profit. You've got them both set. You know what those numbers should be with the system that you're working. And the system is geared to work. What percentage of the time will your system work?
75 to 80.
You're going to make a shit ton of money, and you're going to have some losses
No.
because it's not 100%. None of this is, but the odds are in your favor.
Mhm.
Okay? You got to just get it so that you're playing the averages, the odds, because the odds are going to give you the wins.
Mhm.
Okay? That's what it comes down to. By the way, that's what happens in life too. The mind models are just another way of putting the odds in your favor. That's all they do. They don't stop shit from happening to you. Okay? It doesn't work that way. Life throws crap at you. It's how you respond to it. That's what matters.
I heard a quote the other day that stress isn't not having any issues in your life. Not having stress is the ability to cope with the issues. So
Well,
being
actually, not having stress means that you're dead.
well, right, right. So I mean, if you have stress, I mean, you're always going to have stress. No matter if you got all the money in the world, you're still going to have problems and issues. But if
Always.
you have a way, like mind models, if you have a way with mind models to deal with the issues, then stress don't matter because you can deal with them. You have the ability to deal with it and not
Exactly.
be stressed about
And I think that speaks to like the magnitude of the stress, right? So when somebody's frustrated, overwhelmed, and they're in that space, they're experiencing their perception of stress is very high. But having an
it. Mhm.
effective coping mechanism, having an effective process, helps mitigate that so that they're not necessarily feeling the extent of that because they have a way in which to work through it. And
Yeah.
so that's where the effectiveness comes in. The question comes down to, is the process or the habits that we are currently engaging in effective or ineffective for the results that we're looking for in whatever area that we're looking at in that moment? And sometimes that's where the certainty comes in, right? When we're doing that past future that Blair was talking about, we've done things in the past and we're pulling that through to the future. Sometimes that's where those internal blocks can come from, is the habituated patterns that we've been doing that have formed something that we may not even be cognitively aware of. It may not be something that is top of mind for us. We're just behaving in a pattern loop. And it reminds me of this quote by Patrice Lewis. I'm going to pop it in the chat. When you're dealing with internal blocks, things that you may or may not be aware of, and you don't have distance and scope, sometimes when you live in an echo chamber, all you hear are the reflections of your own opinions. So how often do we have our own internal monologue and dialogue and story about things, trading, communication, life,
Which
that
voice?
I'm sorry?
Which voice? There's like 7 or 8 of them rolling around in there. I'm never lonely. I got enough friends right in my own mind.
Fair enough. So if you've got 6 voices in your head, how do you choose, Shane?
Yeah.
Lori, did you want to?
I just wanted to,
Yes.
I just wanted to say to Shane, when you said about problems and whatnot, when you don't have problems anymore, or these issues going on in your life, the guys that don't have problems, like I think Blair said, where are they? They're in the graveyard.
They're dead.
They're dead. It's game over.
Mhm.
That's life is every day. There's going to be new challenges, new faces, new problems, new whatever, and you're going to face something anyway. And it's just how you overcome that or look at it and tackle it. And Mind Models does that. It helps you do that.
But it's also not effective behavior if you have stress and you just stick your head in the sand like an ostrich.
True.
Like
True.
you have to deal with this. You have
Right.
to have an effective resource, an effective mind model to deal with the stressors and not just. I know so many people that don't have stress in life, but they also just bury their head in the sand and just don't care. Like, oh well, it don't affect me. Well, it does. You're just choosing to ignore it, and your life sucks.
Right. So, right. And like, I've got a huge legal thing going on with myself right now. It's been going on for 2 years. It's been very stressful for me. And it almost consumed me 2 weeks ago. And I was just living in fear. And I thought, no, I can't do that. I have to just be in the present. And mind models have brought me back into that. And Blair, of course, has helped me with that as well. But no, you can't project. You don't know what's going to happen. Just stay present. And that's what's helped me, is just to stay present every day.
And be resourceful.
And resourceful. Exactly.
Present, resourceful. I like those. Great notes.
Yeah.
You know what, honestly, talking with my client, he's got a lot of very effective people around him. And the thing that he kept noting is that he's not being effective and he's not being resourceful. He's caught in his overwhelm and his frustration and he's stuck. And he's got a huge thing where he feels like he's, an imposter. So his imposter complex is like, 15 on a scale of 1 to 10. But he doesn't have those 7 extra people running around in his head like you, Shane. And I like Colin's thing. There's 20 people on the BDE tonight, and half of them are Shane. Okay, now with that, it really comes down to the level of resourcefulness that you have. And when you can be resourceful intentionally, that changes everything. All
May
right.
I add something here for a moment, please?
Yep.
Shane, when you were talking earlier, you were talking about your self-talk telling you to stop it, whatever, it was. When you are saying stop it, where is your focus? What are you focusing on when you're saying those things to yourself?
I'm focused on past behavior.
Okay. So if you are focused on past behavior, as Lori was saying, where do you need to get to?
Be in the present.
To be in the present. If you are in the present, do you want to be facing forward or backward?
Forward, yes.
So is it more effective to speak to yourself about what you want to do and not what you don't want to do?
Well, in my case recently, it's been not effective. Like, I mean, I can tell myself, but it's such a bad habit. It's such a overpowering, like.
Okay, right now, stop. Because you're right now practicing the bad habit.
Yes.
That's what you're doing, is you're reinforcing this in your mind and calling it overwhelming. Well, give up, quit.
No, I'm not doing that.
Great. So then stop giving it energy.
So what is it you want to do, Shane? And can your focus be there?
Exactly.
So we're dealing with, where are we choosing the power of choice? Where are we choosing to put our focus?
Mm-hmm.
Are you celebrating your wins?
Yeah, I mean, even the small ones. And like I said, the
How
first
do you
stop
how do you celebrate your wins?
9 times out of 10, I give Christy a high five.
Okay. Well done. I think we're going to shift, if no one has any other comments, to shift to wrap up at the moment.
I want to see her happy dance. You don't want to see me dance.
Blair, can you repeat what you just did to kind of snap Shane out of it? I just want to hear that again. What did you say? You said something really great there about your practicing.
I just said stop it.
Yeah, but he's practicing. What did you say?
He's practicing reinforcing his stuck state.
Okay, yeah,
And
that's what
he's literally practicing The thing that he doesn't want to do, that's what he's practicing. And you got to do an interrupt. Okay? So those of you that are coaches have to start interrupting. Those of you that are using mind models, we have to interrupt ourselves. And that piece on a NANPU of awareness, notice, process, understand is a self-interrupting model. If we can wrap in our head, this is what I don't want, can I become aware that I'm doing it and then notice that I caught myself? That's huge. That's life-changing.
Absolutely. Any other last comments before we do?
By the way, that's one of the things that makes Mind Model Method Coach training so effective, is because we have to start learning how to do that effectively for yourselves and others.
In a sense, I'm just going to kind of draft off of what you just said for a moment. When you do that for yourself, you are also doing it for others. You are influencing others around you when you are able to manage your own emotions, your own circumstances, the situations in your life. So you might do my Model Method Coach training for yourself, but the benefits to others are huge. Yeah, Shane. You have your little hand thing up?
One quick question before we do the wrap up. Christy came
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
and so like I celebrate my wins with her, but then a lot of times I'll still be evaluating what I did or didn't do. Is that
Okay.
effective behavior or ineffective behavior?
If it is a fair and balanced evaluation based on what is externally verifiable and reasonable within the situation, that other people might look and say, okay, this is reasonable here, as opposed to smooshing, where Blair talked about the smooshing of the evaluation and the judgment, so that the judgment leaks into the evaluation. You have to watch for the smoosh.
And that's exactly, your language was high probability schmoosh. Right there.
Hey. Thank you.
So any other last comments before we start wrap up?
Just speaking from personal experience there with that whole last comment of smushing, I don't know how many times I have said to my wife, I'm evaluating. She's going, no, no. Are you listening to your tone? You know, the way you're asking the question, like there is judgment in there. And so just, yeah, a lot of times it can seem as if it's evaluation. But yeah, there's that fine line of smush between evaluation and judgment. So, and I've experienced that firsthand. So,
And just because we're looking at the evaluation on this side and we see it and we call it out and say that's an evaluation, excuse me, but this is the judgment hanging on to the evaluation, and this side is probably winning. The judgment side.
Yes, judgment is more of a polluter than evaluation.
Yep.
So it's going to color the water more. Any other last comments before we go into the wrap up? Okay. Leslie, would you like to participate in the wrap up tonight?
Yes, thank you. 9.5. These evenings are just getting better and better every week. The clarity that these discussions are having and bringing the mind model concepts together, and in thinking of ways of how to use them in moving forward. Again, pages of notes and staying present and being resourceful is one that I highlighted heavily here tonight. So it's
Thank you very much.
wonderful. Thank you.
Lise, would you like to participate in the wrap up tonight?
Wow. There's so much that's been said, and how to wring the sponge just to get the, the few words or the essence of it. I'm not sure how to respond. It's just taking a seat back, listen and observe, and perhaps come up with if identify different solutions. So just to focus and stay in the present moment, and just try to breathe and not have any judgment. So just to take a step back and just say, okay. So that's about where I'm at right now, but it's definitely 9.5 tonight for sure.
Yeah, sometimes giving yourself a little space is really very effective behavior. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Lori, first, would you like to participate in the wrap up tonight?
Yeah, so I'm at a 9. I found this, I'm following the conversation better, so I'm getting more clarity on the concepts. What I'm left with is a big question, and I didn't bring it up because I have a feeling it might not be that simple. But that is going back to the ANAPU, the awareness piece. What is it that brings awareness to self, and then how do we bring that awareness to others effectively? I saw a little bit of it with the pattern interrupt, but that's what I'm left with, is just thinking about that. And I'm okay with sitting with that.
Cool. A very quick response to that is it's almost always simpler than we think. And the idea of being able to trip over awareness, literally trip over it, but then notice the stumble. Because the awareness will be there, but it's noticing. So it's awareness, notice. A lot of people can be aware, but they just don't notice their awareness. And so nothing is there. And that's how come I keep on saying, well, I don't keep on saying, but I'm going to repeat myself. It's simpler than you think, because the awareness is there. The trick is not with the awareness. The trick is in noticing the awareness. Okay.
So then how do you do that for others?
That again is super simple.
Okay.
And it's a question. But that's where, like in mind model method coach training, that's where the questioning of what we do to shift ourselves and shift others comes out.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And I can't, without doing everything in there and going through, okay, now I've got it. Now it is the complex thing of, if you know question concepts, you can hear where somebody is, then that will give you a very good high probability way of phrasing your question to answer or to ask them to take a look at whatever it is that you want them to take a look at in a way that doesn't ram it down their throat and they get defensive. It's just, that's it. It's just, but you got to know where they're at. And there's not a script, there's a process. but not a script.
Nice. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Lori.
She's coming.
Okay.
Okay.
There you
Hi. I just wanted to say, I think it's for Blair and I, this last week was, which was huge, and he already touched on, was being clear, naming and labeling your words. Like when we were having a difficult time and we were trying to sort through something and we were not communicating, we were kind of butting heads a bit. I said, okay, we need a break. And he thought, break up. And I was going, no, I just wanted time. So I didn't name and label effectively. I should have said, I just need some time, or we need time to think this through.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because Blair thought completely different than what I did. And a few days later, I sent him a little emoji in the morning. Oh, I still love you, or I love you, whatever. And he's going, oh, we're not breaking up. I go, no, honey. it was just some time. He goes, well, wrong words. So naming and labeling correctly, very important. Yeah, so all good.
But also for me, just being patient and going, oh, let's not throw in the towel. Even if this is a breakup, let's give it time to see what actually happens. In other words, turn it into a test. Like I love testing because my worst nightmare can be turned into a test to see what actually happens. Because life is not as bad as we usually make it out to be unless we're dead.
Right.
And then we don't care. Then it doesn't matter. I'm dead. It doesn't matter. It's over. Okay? But I didn't die. Our relationship didn't die. And all it did is get stronger.
Correct. Yeah, just it did.
Because we behaved to the meanings of our words.
Mhm.
Okay? Her word had my meaning for me that wasn't identical to hers. We have to get that meanings aligned. And when those align, boom, it's fine. It's great, actually. It's not even fine, it's amazing.
If anything, made it
Stronger, better.
everything stronger. It has been.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yay. I'll give it 9.5, 10.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Jane, would you like to give us a wrap up tonight?
Thank you. Yes, I was just writing down in red. Turn it into a test. Test if something new works. Which is what I want, what I think. I'm going to put quotes on it now. So that turned it from an 8.79 to a 9.5, 9.75.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Shane, would you like to give us a wrap up tonight?
Oh, absolutely. 9.9 for me. Everybody's comments, Blair's, Brent's, the identify, apply, master. Of course, right before that, Blair was talking about IDR. And then I wrote like test, and 3 big words there. Shannon's words in the chat, role model the effective behavior. And then Jane, in the chat, who's in charge, the professional trader or the fearful? And and then Blair obviously mentioned the imposter syndrome with his client. And I feel that because there's a couple guys that I'm coaching that I know externally verifiably that they've said that I've helped them numerous with their trading. And so I feel like an imposter when when I struggle. So I feel like an imposter, like I can teach it, but I can't do it. But I can do it, and I'm gonna do it. So
okay, hold it right there because you're not evaluating, that's you judging.
Well, I was going to say, I'm going to interrupt this for the sake of time. Do y'all
yes,
have an interest in going into imposter syndrome? Because we could do more of that next week. Thumbs up, thumbs, whatever.
I'm all for it.
Okay, I think that this deserves more time than we can give it now. So if y'all are on that page, we'll carry that over to next week. So thank you, Shane. Brent, would you like to give us a wrap up tonight?
Yeah. I like, I mean, again, going on with Shane, it is very, his topic is it bleeds right into seeing this whole thing, you know, and the beliefs too, you know, is there, that piece is there as well. So, you know, that whole thing, we can use it to see it. And how you can, I like to, with Becky, you know, building up those barriers, you can make them into those blocks, and seeing how that transitions and where that can get, I'd say, dangerous, you know, if you want to keep pushing it that way to get it that way without going in and being able to step back with that distance and scope. So possibly looking outside yourself, if you're able to evaluate and see, and you're not able to figure it out, to go outside externally, get resourceful, you know, ask questions to get to that point. You need to go, you know, going to somebody else outside of you, is that going to help you, you know, get around? If you don't know, somebody else might. So yeah. And I was proud of myself. I get the little I am processor. I remember that, you know, saying that we how that ties into, you know, all of the mind models tie into it, but seeing that process, and
Yes.
you know, pick up that on the habits with Leslie. So yeah, I give it a 9 tonight.
Well, we're really looking forward to having you in my model method coach training.
Me too.
You've got so much experience already. I'm very excited to see what that looks like in training. And Lise, if you're not here next week, we will miss you, but you always add to us when you're present. So I thank you for your intermittent attendance. Let's see.
Thank
Shannon.
you.
Oh, you are very welcome.
And
Shannon.
I just, if I may add, I forgot to say something, talking about stress earlier.
Yes.
I remember my father reading a book about, it was Hans Selye, who is the author, and talked about stress. And like Blair and everybody else was saying, if you don't have any stress, then you're not here. You know, you're basically physically, you're not here. Yeah.
Yeah, with reference to that, just to kind of draft off of what you just said, Lise, there's a book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And the idea is that they don't hang out in the fields, you know, worrying about being chased by the lion. When the lion chases them, they run. Somebody gets eaten, the rest move on. You know, they're still very present with just, you know, the lion's been fed, it's not me. So moving on. And so zebras don't get ulcers. And so I think about that periodically with the issue of stress. It was a good book. Anyway, Shannon, would you like to participate in the wrap up tonight?
Just said something I had to write down. This was interesting because I started out feeling foggy around the edges, and then Shane said something about, and the tone was just fabulous when you said how much you love it. And so then in my mind, I'm like, well, hold on a second. And so I got to thinking about falling in love with the process, the testing process, instead of the result. And I was remembering I watched some special features in a movie, and it was about making the movie. And this quote I had, like, I stopped the whole thing and I wrote it down word for word. And it was someone's comment about working with a composer. It says, an interesting thing watching so-and-so work with all the musicians is how he can make a change at the last minute. And it's so important because we always want to make the story as good as it can be. And so part of that means not falling in love with what you've done. If the story needs to change, it has to change. So they're not falling in love with the result, like, oh, I did this thing. They're falling in love with the process of making the movie, of composing, of testing. And so I was thinking about that from what you said, and then thinking about what a block is and how, like, our perspective, because we did that one a long time ago about changing the lens, the camera lens, and this was a very popcorn brain moment because it literally sparked so many things in my head. But I got to thinking, I don't know if anybody's seen this book. Hold on. Get rid of this blur situation. This is a square. And the whole book shows this, it says that this is a square, and it goes through page after page after page showing that this is a square, and people are talking about it doesn't look like a square. This is a square, this is a square, all the way until the end when it shows you this picture and said this is a square. And so changing our lens and our angle on a block is like a magic wand that poofs, and all of a sudden it makes it a barrier that we can see over, and then we start to get excited and resourceful. And so it was thinking about how, the block, like the conversation around our emotions regarding blocks, I felt like some of those emotions could be taken really internally and make us really stuck. And some of them could be external in terms of really like certainty and defending, and doing the same thing over and over, what those might look like from those two perspectives, symptom wise, internal or external symptoms of like having a block. And then what just the absolute, hold on one second. Yeah, hold on, there's a question somebody said, Becky said, what would a change in perception feel like? And that's what made me think about this and that little shift. And then all of it changes if you just are open for 1 second to changing your perception. What could another perspective feel like? And then all sorts of different possibilities become possible. So it was a very like out here, and then it came in sort of a night. And Shane, you inspired that with your comment, because it is, if we do love doing something, then the creativity and the passion for the testing is what keeps us going. It's something that we enjoy doing, and we want to figure out more ways to do it and how we can do it more effectively. And so that idea of being excited about the process as opposed to really stuck on the result. Because if it's the result, then every time it's a reflection on us, and our self-confidence takes a blow, or our certainty that our block is built on, has to dig in a little deeper, and all these different things. So it was really so many different mind models popped into my head throughout the whole evening: confidence and self-confidence, and internal and external. So it was one of those, like I said, it was a very popcorn evening, but it's a 9.5 for me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Really appreciate the things you had to share.
Yeah, me too.
Colin, would you like to participate in the wrap up tonight?
Yeah, sure. For me, 8 tonight, it would be a 10, but I'm still recovering, so I'm mentally not fully here. But the part of me that is here really appreciated Shane. I'm so grateful to be on calls with you, and you just bring a lot of fun energy, and you're open, and it's great. So thank you for that. One thing that stuck out to me, Leslie, at one point you said, I think the question you said was, what's in front of me? Something like that. I think that's how you worded it. You were talking through your process, and you said something along the lines of what's in front of me. And it struck me that question is like the question, or a question that starts the shift from a block to a barrier. It's like as soon as you ask that question, you have to look at what's in front of you. And once you start looking at it, well, you're trying to name and label it when you say what's in front of me. Well, when you try to do that, you start to look for what are the features of it? What are the edges of it? And as soon as you do that, well, now you've gotten enough distance where it's not a block anymore. So I just thought that's like such a great question. Kick off that transition. So nice work. That was awesome. Thanks.
Thank you. And that issue of distance and space is what Lise was talking about too, which is very highly effective. So that's come up a couple times tonight. Tim, would you like to give us a wrap up tonight?
Yeah, I'd love to. For me, it was a 9, but actually listening to a lot of these wrap ups, it went to a 9.75. A lot of my big takeaway, and I love talking about blocks versus barriers, just because it allows me that opportunity, as Colin just got done saying, and Leslie said so well, to really step back and take a look. Okay, is this a block? Is this a barrier? Like, what is actually in front of me? And Shannon, You took, wow. I mean, I couldn't have said that any better. That was awesome. Just that ability to just really take that step back, look at what's in front of us and go, okay, can I work with this? Can I get around this? Is this really a block? Is this just a barrier? You know, as Colin just got done saying, and Leslie, you know, alluded to earlier, and so many have said, is just where are my edges and how might I work with this? And then if it is truly a block, then how might I pivot? Because we always have a choice. We always have that option to work with whatever is in front of us. But being able to take that moment to just pause, step back, and really evaluate what's in front of you, so to speak, and then move forward, or pivot is what makes these skills so amazing. And so I just love when we're able to talk about the difference between barriers and blocks, because it really just helps me take just that moment to really take a look back and then test. And Shane, I really appreciate, you know, the conversation that you brought up today as well. I had a moment today where I was actually trading and I was over there like, yes, I saw that. That was awesome. You know, I was trading earlier and I was like, oh, that, you know, it worked out. It did go to that take profit or whatever. And then Becky kind of looked at me and she goes, but were you actually in the trade? Well, no, I wasn't, but I saw it. And she's like, well, how come you're not testing? You're not actually, you know, getting involved. You're not actually taking the action here. And I'm like, oh, so I was creating that barrier for myself where I was staying back in my comfort zone and not, you know, I was seeing it, I was winning in my mind, but I wasn't actually engaging. And so just those moments where, you know, just aware of what we're actually doing and being able to, after that I was like, okay, I'm going to test, and I actually got in on some trades and did really well. So it's just when we notice those moments, we take that step back and actually test, that is when we truly move forward. So just, yeah, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Blair, would you like to participate and wrap up tonight?
Me?
Yes, you.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear the name.
That's okay.
Sort of glitched on me. Yes, I would. I love tonight. And thank you, Shane, for writing down test, test, test. That's like super critical. Shannon, I think you said fall in love with the process or the testing. Like that is what it's all about. Because then it's not about you. It's not about how good you are, how bad you are, even how effective you are or not. It's the thing that you're testing. Does it work? Not do you work? Does the mind model work here? Does the system work here? And can I make it identifiable, repeatable, and duplicatable? And when I have that, I can get into control of my life. I can manage my emotions without being emotionless. I can have all the emotions I have because I get to own my emotion and I get to see or test where they work, where they don't work. I can test my meanings that I did with Lori and we tested the meanings of our words to find out how those came together. And it's wonderful. And knowing that 97% of the things we worry about never happen. Okay, let's go with the flow. Let's try and relax and go in. And even when I'm upset and freaking out and doing all of this thing, knowing that 97% of the time I'm wasting my energy, it's a nice number to know. And that one's been tested a lot and it's very accurate. So anyway, guys, for me tonight, 9.75.
Thank you. For me tonight, it was a 9. I noticed a lot of the sharing showed the sliding scale between barriers and blocks, and we're going to cover more oozing into the belief area, but it's a sliding scale, and my models help you downgrade blocks to barriers and downgrade barriers to resourcefulness. So it was an interesting discussion to see that really those things applied to just about everything that people shared tonight. So thank you so much for participating, everybody who did tonight. And we're looking forward. We'll get into imposter syndrome and some of the other things next week. Becky, would you like to give us your wrap up and then take us out?
Yes. 9.25 for me tonight. I love the discussion. Thank you everyone for participating. Shane, thank you for being open and helping us all learn as we navigate how we speak to ourselves and how we're communicating and what comes up out of that. It's always, and I use the word always, distort a word, it's always a great opportunity for us all to learn when people share and are so gracious and open with that. So thank you so much. And I will echo Shannon. I love your shares in the chat. Yours too, Jane. The questions that you're posing. Thank you again for sharing your thoughts, even when they're not verbal in the chat, because it helps to see them for me. I'm a visual person, and it's nice to be able to read through those and be able to make the associations as well, which is great. Barriers and blocks. I text Patty this the other day. You know, this topic is like the framework for life, right? How we perceive what we're experiencing, depending that sliding scale, is kind of the framework for what we experience in this existence here. And so I think that it's such a powerful thing to be able to have access to simple and powerful skills like the mind models to be able to help us shorten the curve, become more effective, resourceful, and have speed of recovery or a speed of transition, whatever that thing is that you're looking for, to really net the outcome that you're looking for. And Shannon, to your point, falling in love with the process, falling in love with the state of working through the thing, because Blair's chatted about this before, like overcoming problems, the process of overcoming a problem is where humans find joy and happiness. Like that's where it comes from. And so to be able to have a skill that allows us to do that, skills and tools, is such a powerful thing. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining us again. Every Tuesday night, we're here. Make sure that you join us at 7 p.m. Mountain, 9 p.m. Eastern for the Blair Dunkley experience. If you know somebody who you believe would be benefit from learning the mind models, please invite them to join us. We have an opening here for everybody to come learn, experience mind models so that you can learn how to be more effective in your own life. And again, if you guys want a deeper dive, please make sure that you snag Blair's insider notes, where you can get from episode 318 and onward, as a enhancement to what we're talking about here. And again, that's $25 a month, $300 a year. I popped it in the chat. You can go to blairdunkly.com/BDE insider notes and sign up for those. So please make sure you do so. And we look forward to seeing you next year, not next year, next time, next week. On the Blair Dunkley. Well, I mean, it's 2025. I haven't adjusted yet. I'm only 2 months in. So appreciate you guys for joining us tonight. Make sure that you join us next week, and we will talk to you then. Take care, everybody.
And next Tuesday, it's my birthday.
Oh,
Birthday, Blair.
Yeah, February 11th. Yay.
So it's gonna be a special episode then.
That's right.
Come join us and
The
celebrate
big
Blair's
7-0.
Very cool. Awesome.
Okay.
Yep.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. We value you all and look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.